I landed and I went, oh no, I made a huge mistake. We found an apartment within the first 3 days of moving to Germany, which is insane. Duolingo, back in the day, completely useless. Useless shit. Weird passing comment my dad made to me in high school of like, you're gonna do a shitty job and you hate it, just do it somewhere cool. There's bars that never close. There's restaurants serving meals at midnight. But you want to go to the grocery store on a Sunday? What is wrong with you?
Hank, hi. Good evening on
Hey.
my side. Good morning on your side. Let's say we are on a different side of world. Today
Yep.
we have a special story in the whereabouts tales. It's an expat back and forward story, I will call it, if you
Yeah,
allow
that's
me
a good way to put it.
to.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
we have Hank, who's at the moment back in the United States, but he moved back since not so long. So, Hank, most probably, I would kindly ask you at the beginning to say where you grew up in the US, where are you
Okay.
originally coming from?
Yeah. So I grew up originally in the DC area near Virginia on the East Coast of the United States, in a small town called Falls Church, maybe 15, 20 minutes to an hour away, depending on how much traffic there is outside of DC. Um, and it's great place to live, really cool, loved it, and kind of thought like to myself, like probably all of us on what am I doing with my life? There's got to be something more, right? So looking into universities and looking into colleges in my later teens, I kind of like, saw the path ahead of me. I could go to school very easily in my home state and stay with my friends and continue life that way. And I kind of like, probably like all your listeners, have that quest to see like what else is out there. And I don't really believe it until I see it in a great way, right? Like you can see movies and documentaries and pictures as much as you want, but when you see something in person, it's like this awe moment. And when I was 18, I got into the University of Colorado and I really knew nothing about it. So my buddy and I drove out there and fell in love, and that kind of started my quest for like, let's just throw a dart at the board and move. So, um, diving in, yeah, graduating from school and getting into the workforce, I thought, am I going to commute every single day? I hate it. I don't want to be in the city. It's really loud, and I get it, right? Like I grew up here back in DC. So, um, probably like a lot of people, 10, 15 years ago, social media was a lot different, a lot less people, a lot less scams. I started just like looking at who's hiring, what's going on, um, like where could I move? And I saw a job post. I think this is really stupid, but the Facebook group was called like social media professionals or something really dumb and vague. And someone was asking for a social media editor at a streaming platform in Berlin, Germany. And I had never been. I knew a lot about German history and like random things from just general interest. And I had no background in streaming at all, but I did in social media and marketing. And I kind of knew how to like craft what I was saying for the particular audience, right? And I wrote to them 2 or 3 weeks later, heard back, which I was like, who are these people? Like your brain totally disconnects when you apply online. You're just like, I'm never going to hear from these people ever again. And yeah, with my girlfriend at the time, moved to Germany in 2014 and totally fish out of water, had no idea what was going on. What did I do with my life? Oh no, do I have enough money to fly back? If this sucks, if no one likes me. And first day we landed at the airport, I was like, drive by this place and make sure it's real. And it was real. And I was like, oh my God, you could have like cut my body up and sold me to different parts of the world. But they never asked for money or passports. And I didn't, like you're in Germany too. Like it's like super formal in ways, but also not in other ways where I just started working and no one ever proved it was me. Like there was never like an ID check or like any of the fail safes that are there in the United States weren't there then. And I was like, maybe I'm scamming them. Like I don't know what I'm doing. And we originally were there for 1 year and I fell in love with it. I got some friends, and the next thing you know, it's 10 years later and you're just like, wow, time flew by. Yeah.
I have to stop you a bit.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. I
you
dove
went
right
you went
in.
you went exactly through hold it, but it sounds so interesting. So you mentioned a lot of things which surprised me as well. So I think this is the thing that nobody asked me for my any kind of diploma when I
Right.
when I
No,
started working. The
nope.
trust level is on a different level that I from Romania and apparently you from US didn't understood back then.
Zero. I have no idea where my
But
degree
I
is.
think what is worth saying as well, Hank, is that Berlin is on a different level because Berlin is a huge startup hub.
Right.
And I think this is really, really making it less bureaucratical because of this
Yes.
when we talk about hiring. But going back a bit to your history, because
Yeah.
I like the story of I want to see what the world is about. Was your family like this, Hank, or what triggered that in you?
No, so I mean, that's the grand question I keep asking myself is like we never traveled overseas at all as kids. We never had that like, travel vacation mentality growing up at all. My mom pretty much lived where she grew up, and my dad was a State Department kid, which in the US was a lot bigger during the Cold War with, Americans being stationed all over the world. But despite that, and him growing up in France, he grew up partially in Bucharest, and in
Really?
Munich. Yeah,
In
yeah, yeah.
crazy
So
how
random,
small is
right?
the world? Absolutely,
But
man.
despite all that, he's never left the United States for the next like, until I moved there. He never really did it. I think he went to Germany once for work, and that's it. He had like, you know, I think for him, like diving in, having a family, raising us, exploring the United States was more on their radar. My mom never even had a passport until I moved to Europe. I think for me, it kind of, I don't know if it got into like, well, if everyone's doing X, that's clearly the right way, the right path, right? But when someone tells you like, "Oh, should I do this or should I do that?" and they go, "Definitely do option A." You don't know if that comes from experience or because someone else told them A
Or because they
the
have a
first time.
frustration, or because they have a frustration because they wanted to do it and they never done it.
Right. And for me, I was more like, "Well, what's option C?" If everyone's living in New York, DC, or LA, that sucks. The world's a horrible place if this is just Blade Runner mega cities. And I said, well, if there's all these startups in Berlin, there's clearly people in Berlin, and there's clearly companies that are hiring in Berlin. Maybe they'll be interested in what I have to say.
So you didn't spotted any country in Europe, you just spotted your Germany then?
Back in 2014, I think I had looked into Dublin because of all the, like the, I guess,
The
tax haven type of
exactly,
thing.
yeah. Yeah.
And then London a little bit. I had looked into Auckland and New Zealand when I was in college, but that's like crazier moving there. But for that in 2014, Berlin was like the place for startups. So I said, all right, let's go. Let's see what happens. And I assumed like when you apply to any job online, I would never hear back from these people ever. And then they
Especially
responded and I went,
2014. Yeah.
oh my God, right? Like you're just going to some mailbox. And when they messaged me back, I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Like I couldn't even say his last name. He was a Danish guy. And
You know,
I was
Hank,
like, all right, okay. Yeah.
everything is so random. I moved to Germany at 215. It's so
Yeah.
crazy. I love this. I just love this. Let's move on. I just love
It was a
every
different time to move there, right?
absolutely,
Like everyone
absolutely.
showed up and you're like, where are you from? That's the
Yeah,
first question because no one was from there.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely the same. Absolutely the same. Um, what was what was the family's reaction?
Oh, my parents were. I don't know if they were like, okay, well, we'll see you when you move back, or like, hey, in a year you'll be back. Cool, we'll leave all your stuff here, all my crap that I didn't want, right? Like all my furniture and books and whatever. I think they got a dose of that when I left for university on the other side of the country. That where I grew up was not for me, and maybe I didn't fit in 100%. Like I grew up outside of DC, so it's a lot of politics, a lot of like bigger corporations, but also like that grinding mentality. For me, I was more like, how can I find something that I'm more passionate about? That is, like if you like what you do, you never work a day in your life. Like that kind of shit is inherently human, right? Like no one wants to be miserable with what you're doing. And my dad told me something that stuck with me for a long time that kind of driven my life, where he's like, if you're going to do something mindless at work and hate every day of it, at least be somewhere cool. Move to Hawaii or be on a beach
Which
somewhere.
makes a lot of sense, man.
Dude, like if you want me at a highway stop, you know, doing whatever shitty job out there, at least go on a beach or do somewhere tropical or badass. Don't make yourself triple miserable. So I thought, well, I hate commuting in DC. This sucks. Like I'm in the car 3 hours a day. At least in Germany, it's something new. So I'll go sit on a train for an hour each way, same deal, but at least it's new for me. And I kind of had let that drive my life for the last 10, 15 years of like, hey, you do a vacation to Vietnam or whatever, and you're like, well, could I just do my same job that I kind of like here and be more happy, or could I find something cooler? So it's kind of like that weird passing comment my dad made to me in high school of like, if you're gonna do a shitty job and you hate it, just do it somewhere cool because at least you have the cool part, right? So I think that has always been on my mind of like, what is cool? What is making me happy? Like, is Germany that place? Is it traveling around Europe? Is it traveling the United States? Like, what else is on the planet, right? And you never know.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that somehow, but it's so interesting that came random. That's the only thing. So I think the statement of your father made a lot of sense and makes a lot of sense. I have to say,
Sure.
it's really if you do something that you hate, at least do it something which is nice.
Yep.
Um, so you landed in Germany. I do guess you got a contract that you get to sign and you send it back. You
Yep.
landed in Germany. What was the first impression, Hank?
Are you Berlin based or no?
No, 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 I'm not.
Okay. I think the first time I landed, in America and like parts of Europe, some of the airports are super nice and modern, right? And like flashy. The Berlin airport,
I know what you want to say.
you know where we're getting at, yeah, fucking sucks. And it feels like you time traveled back into like the spy movie where the guy lands and he's like at the really shitty airport or like the harbor or port and you got out. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the baggage conveyor comes out and it's like basically hand cranked. Like it's
Yep.
missing parts. There's graffiti everywhere. There's trash. Everyone's fucking yelling at each other. And you're like, I landed. I don't think I slept the entire flight because I was super nervous. And I went, oh no, I made a huge mistake. Like you landed, like at Berlin Tegel Airport, which
Tegel, I
is
want to ask you, was it Tegel?
yeah,
Yeah, for sure
it
it
was
was
Tegel.
Tegel, yeah.
Should
Yeah.
have felt even worse, but at least this was like I landed and was like, oh no, oh
For,
no,
ev-
and
for
yeah,
everyone that doesn't know the history, we have to mention that Berlin is
yep,
building an airport since, I would like to say,
over a
forever.
decade. Yeah,
Exactly. And there is a temporary solution, which is Tegel, which got smaller and smaller and smaller because of the amount of flights that they had to handle. And there was a container expansion. That means they literally got containers and they stuck up, down, left, and right from the
yep.
building so that they made it bigger. So it's a, oh my God. Yeah,
So
please go on.
basically, yeah, I mean, I can get into the history too, but like during the Cold War, Berlin and Germany was divided by Russia, France, England, and the United States. Each sector of Berlin had their own airport, but because after the wall fell, Tegel remained, and Tempelhof, the American one, or it was German then American, it was an army base. It was like one of the biggest buildings ever in Europe. I think the current one is in Bucharest. It's like your parliament building is like one of the biggest continuous buildings in
True.
Europe. Um,
Thank you for knowing that.
yeah, gotcha. So Tempelhof that was closed in the 90s, and Tegel remained, but it's basically one terminal that's the U shape, and all of it, like you said, is extra containers that are haphazardly thrown apart. And then there's a separate airport in the complete south of Germany, which was the Russian airport called Schönefeld, which is at least has a train to it, but is also all these segments and disconnected and whatever. They've built a different place off the back of Schönefeld called Brandenburg Airport, but it feels like a time capsule. Like you go in and it's almost the new things that were there 10, 15 years ago are there brand new, but nothing like everything's hands free, but you still have to open the door with your hand and you still have to like get the paper towel with your hand. Like it's not thought out well and the baggage claim's all messed up, but the way you navigate the airport is so engineered 10 years ago. But they, for the longest time, were having like the runways too short. People couldn't figure out how to turn off the lights, couldn't get transportation there. There's not enough parking. They figured it out, but at the time when I landed at this original Tegel airport, it's like each gate of the airport has its own security line. So you walk out and you're passing these like old metal, like super scary German signs, and it's all rickety and run down, and you're like, oh no. And then you get in a cab and you're like, oh no. And you drive through the part of any city near the airport, which sucks. And you're like, oh no, oh no, this is bad. I made a mistake. And yeah, sorry.
Did you have to drive through the east as well?
No, I went originally to my girlfriend's aunt's house in the south of Berlin. So we did like the whole beltway all the way around.
Okay,
And
but on the west side then.
on the west side originally, yeah. And
Lucky
you're
you.
not right, exactly. You know where I'm getting at this. And we're mostly through like the forest and whatever, and we pop out in her area in South Berlin, and it's like older, more established neighborhood. And I saw Domino's, and I am not a big Domino's fan, but it was the first thing I recognized in this country, and I was like, "Huh, they got Domino's." Like my brain was like, "Okay, yeah,
Feels like
sure."
home.
Yeah, exactly. It's so different. Like, and when you come to get used to it, especially as a European, you start to recognize all these chains all over the place, but they were all new to me. So the only thing I recognized was Domino's. And Um, and then the next day went up to Alexanderplatz and saw all the tourist sites that weren't destroyed during the war. Went into East Berlin, which is a lot different. Um, but yeah, like the city's very like disconnected in a weird way.
Why I asked you, and I think you know why I asked you why you
Yeah.
have if you have drive to the east side, because I do remember my first business trip to Berlin. And I took the car and I passed through the former border crossing again. For whomever is watching, there is a former border crossing between East and Western Germany, and it's happening through a forest somewhere. And they left everything there, like not everything, but most of the things there, so that because it's a piece of history for sure. It's a strange feeling. You see when you pass it.
Oh yeah.
It's insane. And I was there, I
It-
think, 2017 to 18.
yeah, you never know if it's like abandoned or not, or if it's a museum or not, or if it's just there to remind you.
It's such a strange feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially like driving north or south, you pass through those too, and you're like, they look like for the listeners at home, they almost look like gas stations on the side of the road that aren't.
Exactly. Yeah. Like
It's like a
abandoned
truck
gas
waste.
stations.
Yeah, but it's like a truck way station, but there's also like a bridge that goes over the highway that has
Correct.
buildings in it, so you can't physically pass it if they don't want you to.
Correct. Correct.
And yeah, then there's like random because there used to be like a racetrack around Berlin. There's like random amphitheater seating on the side of the highway too, and it's to do you remember that? Yeah,
I
exactly.
forgot.
So
Yes.
yeah, going into
Oh
East
my God.
Berlin, you're like, this is either really cool or really sketchy. Actually, I really like it. it's kind of like more up and coming artsy. There's a lot of other people there speaking English, young families, young people. But you have to like be there to see it. Like that's not on the tourist route, you know? There's nothing there's like significant culturally that you would go out of your way as like someone visiting for a day.
So you said you went to your girlfriend's aunt who was living in
Mhm.
Berlin. That means you didn't had to go from the beginning through the apartment hunting process.
Well, the aunt had been in the house. She's still alive. She's great. She's like 88. Um, she's been in the apartment since I think early 60s, unrenovated. Clearly doesn't, have an extra room for a guy and his girlfriend. So we found an apartment, and you'll know this as a German. We found an apartment within the first 3 days of moving to Germany, which is insane. Insane.
How? How?
Right. So here's the curse and the blessing is for your listeners at home, finding housing in Europe is really, really hard. Very, very hard.
Berlin,
You have to
Berlin,
right,
Berlin.
right.
Let's. So Europe. Sorry for interrupting you, Hank. I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
to
you're
say this.
good.
So in Europe is really hard. Berlin
Right.
is impossible.
Next tier. It's you have to know someone who knows someone who's moving out 2 years from now that their apartment won't be more expensive, but you still have to apply for that spot. And there'll be 300 other people because everyone knows someone. So you'll see the scams, you'll see the place that's quadruple the price. You'll see the furnished place you can only stay in for 1 month. You'll see the hotel room they're trying to sell as an apartment. You'll see the place an hour outside of town for the same price as somewhere inside of town. Like Berlin, I did not know this before getting there, is insane. I don't know, and I've been in some of these apartments with friends, and I have to say, like, why are you living here? This is horrible. This is a shithole. Like, legit, this should be condemned building. Like, it's not safe for you to be here. And then there's like kind of they have a nice kitchen or something cool, it's redeeming about it. But we got a newspaper because my girlfriend's aunt at the time was like, get a newspaper and look who's renting. And I was like, oh my God, really? And sure enough, dude, someone had an apartment listed on the ground floor where, your street side. And we
No
walk
way.
in and I'm like, this is okay, right? It's like 60 square meters, 600 square feet roughly. And right when we're looking at the apartment, someone pulls their car up and parks right in front of the window and is idling and the whole apartment's shaking. And I'm like, oh no. That moment of like,
Oh
oh no, I
my
fucked up.
God.
So I said, hey, do you guys have anything else? And they're like, oh yeah. On the top floor, there's an apartment that's even bigger than this for the same price. And we're like, what? And they're like, but you can't
Uh,
move in right now. You can move in next week. And we're like,
uh,
what? Like, why wouldn't you start with the better thing? You get more people with the better one. So we we moved in. I mean, like I had a job. I'm a foreigner. My girlfriend was a student at the time, and they were just like, okay, cool. Like pay 1 month for deposit, like totally unheard of shit. And then here's the curse though, is we immediately liked it. It was fine. It's on a busy street. It's like one of the busier streets in Berlin. Um, and we lived there 7 years because during that 7 years, we never found another apartment to move into. No matter how long you look, it's like a friend of a friend moving, a neighbor moving. You'll never get it, ever. And I don't know if it's as insane as New York, but like Berlin, you're limited because it's a state. There's a barrier, there's a physical boundary of the city, and a lot of people coming in, but it's not growing out, and there's not new things being built and new housing developments. So we looked, man, like we looked past the airport to move out there, and you're like, I'm going to pay more money to live further away. And I still can't move there because someone else already rented it. So that was the blessing and the curse was like, hey, we do have a place, but we can't leave. And yeah, we would like we would look into like, what if we left Berlin just to get a bigger apartment or a better apartment or a place that, wasn't on a busy street. It's totally insane. I've never heard of a city so backed up in its own ways, um, as Berlin in particular.
Absolutely. So I can I can confirm everything that you said. I can also say that an apartment, trying to get an apartment is worse than a job interview. They ask you
Oh
everything.
my
They
God.
ask you about your shoe size. They ask you about your if you snore at night. Everything,
Bank
everything.
statements, the whole thing. Like,
Your working contract to make sure that you
yep.
have a working contract. They have to know there's your salary, your family situation, how long do you plan to stay there, and so on. Crazy.
Yeah. And also, like, I think this is different in Germany too, is like their social credit system weighs how much income you have versus how much expenses you have against that. So
Cost of
physically,
living.
you might, right. Physically, you might be able to afford it on paper, but if some guy determines that you can't actually afford it, same in America, right? It's our stupid credit system, but Germany, it's like, well, for me, I had all the utilities going to my girlfriend's, so I had no expenses out. So that kind of helped us, but it also made it look like I wasn't spending any money at all, which is also not good.
Mhm.
But it's just like at that time and that place in Germany, I was like, sure. And I remember like my girlfriend's family being like, just take that first apartment you find. And I was like, okay, yeah, like, sure. But like we'd even looked at a couple and you're like,
Yeah, but
"Uh,
you don't have the
it's
time. You don't, and
no.
maybe that's also important to say you don't have the time. If you see something that you like and you don't say no, the next guy will say yes. And
And
you
if you
don't
don't
say
say
yes, the
yes
next
in
guy,
person, that's the other
and
thing
it's
is
gone.
you can't do the, oh, let me think about it.
Yeah.
Or like, I'll
Yeah.
get back to you tonight because the next person that's there, the way they start apartment viewing still to this day is you walk in and you fill out the application while you're physically there, giving them your like personal information that could be used against
Your
you,
everything.
pictures of you, weird shit, referrals, all this stuff. Even if you don't want it, you've already filled up the form because that's how quick you have to be. And it's insane. Like
Yeah.
in America, people move pretty frequently, especially in the rental scene, maybe every year or so. uh, I knew people that had been in the same apartment since the 90s or early 2000s, or it's totally nuts. And some people had been there so long they didn't even know what happened to their deposit, but they're like,
And
whatever.
the owners have no interest in renovating.
No,
Zero.
they don't
Like
care.
nothing.
No, why
They
would
don't
they?
care. No.
No.
Um, take me to your through your Anmeldung process, Hank.
Oh my God, I fucked it up really bad. Dude. All right. Well, here's the thing. So, a lot of countries, and I know Romania is better about digitalization than Germany to an extent. And I also know like some places in like the Baltics and Scandinavia are even better. But then you have places like Italy that are way more stuck in their ways than Germany. Germany, you do this thing, translate into English, I guess, city registration. And
Yeah.
yeah, you tell the city where you're living, which is probably based in some anti-immigration thing. I have no idea where it comes back from,
Which is not
but
optional. Not
no, you
optional.
have to do it. You will get fined. And I knew people that didn't do it for years, and it was like at a friend's house, but they still had it. They still played the game. So,
Correct.
like in America, you can mail a package to a friend's house. You can mail it to your parents' house. You can mail it to a hotel you're staying in. In Germany, they try to verify basically every part of your life to one address. So I cannot just mail something to your house. I'd have to put it in your name or whatever. I couldn't say my own stuff. But that means anything official, any document, any form, any card, any paper, any certification gets physically mailed to where you registered with the government that you live. That's the only two-factor system that's in place. So you get locked out of your bank account, they're going to go to your city registration and mail you something there to get back into your online whole deal. So I go to this appointment like there's this joke in Berlin that you can never get an appointment for months. But of course, some guy built a tool where you just say like next available. It'll send you 3 hours away into some place. So I get there. I never, traveled in Berlin at all. It's 2014. And I'm like fumbling through my German. I had a coworker helping me, who also didn't speak German natively, but better than me just showing up. But to get city registration, that's like step one. You need to have an apartment. You want a bank account to pay for that apartment, you need the city registration. Oh, to have a bank account, you need a phone number. To have that, you need the city registration. So what you have to do, it's better now, but you basically had to chicken before the egg, everything before it became official. Because Germany, they're physically mailing everything back and forth. So you go, I got about a week to figure this shit out. Right? It's like writing a check for money you don't have in your bank account, knowing you're going
Exactly.
to have it later. So what I did is I get to this appointment and I lived at Greifswalder Strasse 211. And the lady who registered me wrote 41. And I was just I didn't understand, right? Like I thought
No.
it would go into a database and be done. And it doesn't because it's not digital enough. They give you a stupid piece of paper with a stamp on it. There's no digital anything. It's this stupid piece of paper. And I got the
They change it in
wrong,
the meantime.
right. Right, exactly,
Yeah.
because I did it more recently too. But I got the wrong address on the one piece of paper I needed. I screwed it up
No.
because I didn't double check it, right? I was just so ecstatic that it got done. Um, and I remember going to like the bank and all these places and just being like, "Hey man," like trying to be a real person and say like, "Hey, I screwed up. This is the wrong address." And they're like, "Sorry, too bad." No, they don't care. You're making their day slightly more inconvenient. They're not going to go out of the way to help you. So I I don't remember what I ended up doing, man. I think I went to like I think I just took a number, like got there at like 6 in the morning at a different office and just waited first person. And the lady looked at me and she's like, "Why are you even here? Like this is such an easy fix. The person would have just done it for you." I'm like, "They didn't. They didn't care. Like the second I left the room, they just were like out of sight, out of mind." And after that, like that paper, I like slipped into a folder, like made sure it never got creased or bent or whatever. But you need it like years later. You think this is just like put it in the back of the file. Like you need it for taxes. You need it for opening a new bank account. You need it for getting a cell phone. You need it for renewing your visa. Like I renewed my visa 10, 15 times easily. And I need that stupid piece of paper. Even though it's the same person, they remembered me from last time. They still need this stupid piece of paper.
Hands down, the most used piece of paper in the whole in my whole time living in Germany. Hands down.
Easily. Easily. And it's like the faded paper. It's not even like
Yeah.
bleached. It's just like old
I
school folded.
I
Yeah.
did make a picture of it and I keep printing it
Oh,
because I
same.
keep losing it.
Same. It's so funny, man. Like, and there's nothing like official about it, right? It's just like a
No.
stamp. It's not like embossed or, yeah.
It's so interesting, Hank, because 2017, when I moved to the place that I'm living at the moment, I did say, okay, I need to change my driving license because the Romanian one was expiring, and due to the EU, I get
Yeah.
to have a German one as well. So I only have to
Right.
apply for it. And I went in the morning at 8 a.m. to the city hall, to the town hall in my village, because I live in a small village.
Hmm.
I did change my address from the previous address to the new address, and then I
Hmm.
went to the big city, say let's say it like this, to the Führerscheinstelle
Yeah.
to get my driving license changed.
Right.
And they had already the new address, which I registered 1 hour before in the city hall.
And you're
And I
like,
said,
what
okay,
happened?
why
Why?
why did you keep asking for the Anmeldung?
Yeah. Why does this matter?
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah, required. Yeah, okay.
Well,
Yeah.
here's what's funny is like we bought an apartment in Berlin 4 or 5 years ago and we went to change all our addresses because you need that piece of paper. And my wife went and I was like, well, I'm not doing anything today. I'm just going to go with her to her appointment. And the lady's like, oh, you're married? I'll just change both years right now. Who cares? And I'm like, every now and then you get someone that actually cares about their job and goes the extra mile. But I had just gotten like a permanent residency card, and it says like when you change your address, you need a new card. This angel of a woman she didn't even know my information. She's there for my wife. Got a sticker out, put the new address on a sticker and stamped it and was like, you don't need a new card. Like saves me $200 and like 6 months worth of bullshit. And I was like, where were you 10 years ago? Like you magically care. And you
Makes
it
sense.
added 2 minutes to your day, but you saved me hours and tons of money. And it's
Correct.
totally crazy.
Correct. How was the first day of work, Hank?
In Germany was weird. It was super weird. I feel like, like the whole meme of like first day at school, you feel super uncomfortable and awkward. Well, I was 24, 23 and in a new country and I didn't know like English levels besides the person I met, in the interview process. And I didn't really know what I was getting into, right? Like my office was at Alexanderplatz at the time. They moved later, but it's super busy, tourist crazy, all the double decker buses, the trains passing by. I walked there because I didn't have a cell phone yet because of this whole mix up thing. That took way longer. And I showed up being like, what's going to happen? Like, am I on an alien planet? And what I realized within the first 30 seconds was like, this is no different than what I was doing in America. Like, people are still
Oh,
people.
nice.
People are still working the same way they work. Everyone's gossiping. Everyone's making up shit about each other. There's always like the funny guy, the goofy person, someone stealing lunches. Like, and it was a startup. So it was a lot different than later working in corporate Germany. But it was like I walked in and everyone's like, hey, this is Hank. He just moved here from America. And everyone's like, oh, hey, what's up? It wasn't this like awkward orientation or anything. It was just kind of like, all right, you sit here, man.
That's
I was like,
nice.
okay. I mean, a lot more different experiences later on at different jobs, but this one in particular was like everyone here is not from Berlin, so we're
Ah,
all
okay,
kind of
makes sense.
figuring it out.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes
But then
sense.
when
Yeah.
you work for a German company, it's totally different, But yeah.
Um, how was the social start? Because you have the honeymoon phase, in
Hmm.
which I mean, and I don't mean with the honeymoon with your wife. I mean
Right.
the honeymoon phase with the new location where everything is milk and toast and honey.
Yep.
And then the milk and toast and honey period goes away, and then you try to make some social connections.
Yep.
How did that went?
I mean, you probably had the exact same experience where no one it's weird. Like, this is the age when you move there too, the age of like everyone's your friend on Facebook. You just add people on Facebook. You add people on LinkedIn. You follow them on Twitter. You follow them on Instagram. In Germany, people don't care. And they have like a really tight knit group of people they consider their real friend. By definition, what a friend is, right? You call on them to hang out. You call them with your problems. You call on them to help you out. You also trust them. That's not a million people. It's not the guy who just moved there because Berlin was so big that a lot of people move there and then leave a year later. Why are people going to invest into a friendship, an emotional bond with someone who has one foot in and one foot out of the door? So, like, I would consider myself now, looking back, acquaintances or like casual friends with my coworkers, but no one really cared. I mean, they were nice and friendly and helpful, and a lot of people were saying, like, do this to a better bank account. This is like the health insurance you want. They were guiding me in a great way, but they don't want to hang out and they don't want to hang out with the new guy who might be gone in a month, right? No one wants to, I guess, stick their neck on the line for something that's so energy consuming, like all the registration, the visa, signing up for stupid insurances that pay off, I guess, doing the whole routine with the city of teaching you how to do public transport. Like, that's something you kind of have to figure out on your own. And it took a really long time to get like a friend. And when you do get the one friend, you're like, oh shit, I made it, baby. Like there's no stopping me now. And that's kind of that moment where um it was the guy who hired me. His name's Casper. He's still there, great guy. Chat all the time, like 11 years later, of like, why'd you pick me in the stack of resumes? Like, why did you hang out with me? Like, it just never, like, looking back, how difficult that was, and knowing people that never make a friend, in a foreign country, or never try. And, joining clubs and joining events and doing that, you see familiar faces, but no one really, like, wants to invest in you, right? You have to invest in yourself first. And now looking back, I'm like, all my best friends are in Germany, even though I'm living in America, but it's the same dudes from like 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. And it's crazy that it's not like this endless sea of people. It's like a really tight knit group, and
It's a
everyone kind of
handful.
knows everyone. Exactly. And I've never had such a strong friendship as I do with those people. Even the people that I grew up with, they're still my like best friends, but it's like a different emotional thing having been through all this together and being like, I remember someone being like, hey man, you know, I knew this guy for a year. He's like, yeah, I have Facebook, right? Like you can friend request me. And I remember being like, yeah, jackpot. I made it. And like, dude was like, we had a really small wedding with like 50 people. And this guy was there 10 years later, and we're still joking about it, where it's like, that's how tight this gets. But it also takes so long for people to put their guards down, right? And like, it's not the US, hey man, love to hang out. And there's no follow up. There is. Like, I would see people like routinely once a week on like Sunday or Thursday or whatever, or like, after work or whatever. But it is so genuine in a way that could only be corrupted. It couldn't be more pure, right? So,
Correct.
yeah,
But I think what you said at the beginning is really critical. Everyone is afraid of expats leaving
yeah,
because everyone's thinking they're here for 1 2 years and they are going back home, and
yeah. They
then
take their money
nobody's
and
in.
go. Yeah.
Exactly. And when they realize no, he's in for long run, then they are more open into having longer discussions with you, into getting into deeper topics and so on. So I think that's the
Yes.
thing which changes everything.
Yeah.
Um, living in Berlin, I don't think you had the full experience of it, but still, I need to ask you about the food.
The food, yeah, the food was pretty bad. So Berlin food, I mean, that's a tricky thing, right? Is like same with the first question of like you're only there for a year or so. Everyone's just kind of showing up. You don't want to emotionally invest, but also the food scene 10 years ago was like cheap sandwiches, kind of to go meals. They know you're going to go one time because you're a tourist. You're never coming back. And all the deep cut, cool local spots, you as me are never going to hear of. Those have been there for 100 years, right? That's fine. The trendy, cool, hip things come and go so fast because they get tourists. They get people that go one or two times. The food is fine. Um, but I would never like crave anything. And it was so funny when I moved to Germany, I had a coworker who had also lived in Germany at the time, like 10, 15 years before. And he was saying the thing he missed the most in Germany was a really good hamburger. And I remember looking when we were in Berlin and being like, there's hamburgers everywhere. Fine. Totally cool. There's Burgermeister. That's a great burger. And I would say I got content with that. And now, spoiler alert, back in the United States, we stopped at like some random gas station restaurant in the middle of nowhere, and I had a hamburger there, and it was the best hamburger I've had in 20 years. And I was like, oh my God, Germans don't have hamburgers. They're so bad. But it's so funny because during COVID, you had all these people commuting and traveling all over the country, and the businesses were going out of business that they lived above because it's apartment buildings. So you had a lot of people quitting their jobs or being fired and starting businesses where they live. And that jolt started the Berlin food scene. Controversial take, but the best restaurants to come out in Berlin have happened since COVID because it's people that genuinely care, that want to make their neighborhoods a better spot. They create a network of other restaurant owners that aren't so generic bullshit, but like the cool pizza spot, the cool bakeries, the cool sushi thing, the Korean barbecue, the market hall, those are all post COVID. All these people saying, how do I bring something cool from my own culture here? So the food did, I would say for years, the food sucked, and now it's significantly better. And there's places I miss a
That's a,
lot.
that's an interesting take. What you said that COVID made it better because I think there are also a lot of good spots, at least in my area, that died during COVID.
Absolutely.
Because they were not able to. So I still am missing my favorite, our favorite Italian restaurant, which was an amazing place. Was a family owned restaurant and died during COVID because that was the only source of income of the whole family, and somebody got to decide if it's critical business or not. So
Well, and it's like it's a cash-based society, so doing the online
exactly.
ordering and I think I jumped to help a lot of these small businesses digitize during COVID of like you need to take a credit card. You need to get on some type of ordering system so someone doesn't have to wait outside, in December. But the reluctance of Germany to digitize and to modernize in a lot of ways had to happen. And
I
I
saw a
think like,
picture.
yeah, yeah.
I saw a picture. What drive the digitalization of Germany, and the answer was COVID.
Yeah, it was COVID. Like,
Yeah,
dude, do you remember
absolutely.
like,
You couldn't pay
well,
in the bakery with a card.
yeah, and what's also crazy is like if it was under a certain price, they wouldn't take card, but then it was these stupid bank cards where if it's
Easy.
stolen, exactly, if it's stolen, you have all your info right there, and it's like you're doing the PIN number. So now during COVID, not only do you have to put the chip in, but you have to use the PIN number, and then you have to touch the card reader that everyone else touched, or I give you money, which I touched, and then I get change back, which you've touched. It was overnight. Everyone's doing tap pay. There were more tap pays in Germany than I saw in the United States. And
Yes, absolutely.
overnight, this changed from you got to be here in cash, for your haircut, for whatever, bakery, restaurant, pulling out the bills, figuring it all out, telling the waiter to their face what their tip is, to just tapping and paying or ordering online. And you could now pay with Visa, MasterCard, or whatever bank your system had. Like saved, I think, a lot of businesses because there was a way to keep people moving during COVID, not just,
Absolutely.
you get a
Was
coffee and
switch
you're trying to find coins to pay. Because,
exactly. What was switch for we don't take cards in, we prefer cards, and it was
oh, yeah.
overnight.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. But what do you think about the I don't know if I don't remember it. I have to be honest now if it's in US the same, but what do you think about this the possibility that you have in Germany when you go in a restaurant in a group of 10 people that everyone is paying their own share?
Oh, my God. In Germany, that was the cool part about cash, right? Is you would just throw in enough and there's the one guy counting it. In America, it was always a mess because you'd all put in your cards and you'd make the poor waiter divide it and do the
Yeah.
math.
Yeah.
In Germany, okay, well, to America, we would have an app where like maybe I pay and everyone pays me back on like a PayPal
Exactly.
affiliate thing called Venmo. You could do splitwise, you could do I don't care, whatever. Um, Germany, it's kind of a pain in the butt because there's no tax added on top, so it's like you pay what you bought. But like, let's say you split a bottle of wine or whatever. The waiter might say like, I'll split it two times or just one, and everyone's got to pay each other back. But it's still this archaic monetary system where you're either transferring people, wiring them money, or PayPaling them money, or giving them cash. Everyone tried N26 because they had like a faster repaying your friends, but not everyone had it. And it just started to be like, all right, well, I bought dinner last week, you buy dinner this week, but that poor waiter, man, having to split like a check for 10 people, they don't want to fucking do it.
but I have to say, in southern Germany at least it got better. So you can really
Yeah.
go, and they split it, but it's also a post-COVID thing, at least from my perspective.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
How was your experience with the language, Hank?
Dude, probably same as a lot of people where I really tried my hardest to learn it before I got there. I did Duolingo back in the day, completely useless.
Absolutely.
Useless shit. I
Absolutely.
tried
Don't
Babbel too.
if if anyone is trying to do this, don't even waste your time. No, it's
It's
completely useless.
what I am convinced, and I will say Babbel has their headquarters in Berlin. I knew a lot of people that work there. It maybe works for some people, but it's bullshit. It's it's nothing that will actually help you. And they all say, we're actually going to help you conversationally. I did Duolingo for a year and I would spend hours a day doing it. I knew a ton of vocab. When I showed up, I had no idea that their number system isn't straightforward because Duolingo doesn't give a shit. At least 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they were teaching you basic crap. Where's the bus station? My pants are too tight. What kind of necklace is that? Useless shit. And when they said they don't say 31, they say 1 and 30. I had no clue. Zero. So when I was at the store, I like heard numbers, but they're all mixed up in my head, right? Because it's basically like 100, 1 and 30. And I was like, what? Like, despite all this Duolingo and babbling and whatever, I had no fucking clue. And you just dive in and you realize like all these tips and tricks and hacks are all bullshit to get your money or to get info from you. Like different conspiracy, but Duolingo is basically just doing the CAPTCHA test for computers. You're just writing all these stupid phrases that make no sense. The truck is turquoise. You're like, and it's a cat's driving. You're like, what is this? This is just CAPTCHA for AI bots. But the language is tough. I mean, I thought I was getting into it, and I feel like, at least with English, there's so many variations of English, right? Countries all over the world speak English. We're very good at understanding each other who speak with different accents or different dialects or different models of it. Germany is very rigid, where it's a very restricted language that hasn't dispersed all over the world. So if you don't speak exactly the way they do with the exact same structure and the exact same articles in the exact same placements, they're not being rude. They genuinely do not understand what you're saying. So if you said like the car is fast or the fast car, one is correct and one is incorrect, and people tune out. And it would make me so mad because in English, just throw words together and I'll figure it out, right? So, um, yeah, and you would go through periods of being like, I'm really going to learn German and I'm going to get really, really good, to being like, fuck this. Like, this sucks. I don't even know what the hell
I
that
had
is. Yeah.
I had someone invited from US who moved to France, and they moved so it was a couple that moved to France, and they said okay, they choose the countries in Europe, and they thought okay, maybe Germany is an idea. Then they tried to take some lessons, and then we said no, fuck that, no.
Dude. Well, I would pay for private lessons. I love my teacher. She was great. But I would send or I would spend hours. Hours. I mean, like it was my full-time job. And I'm just learning the difference between like the articles for nouns and the different adages to verbs, but I had no vocab. I was learning all the grammar rules first, and I was like, just teach me some shit. But it's so fundamental that you understand all the modifiers and like articles for each noun. Like each noun has its own version of the. And if you get it
And
wrong, it doesn't
and what's
flow.
important, there are no rules. Everyone is knowing it because they are like this, but they nobody can explain your pattern.
And you start to ask, like, just tell me why. And they're like, why is it
I
dare
I
blank or das blank? And they're like, it just is.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Everyone is saying I don't know. It's
it
like
just
that. I
is.
always learn it like this. Yeah.
And I've also found it frustrating, like, you start to speak German their English is going to be way better than your German. So they're just going to start talking over you in German to the point where you go, you flow through this where you go, I'm really going to start thinking about my doctor and the immigration and the handyman and the person at the cafe in German to a year plus of just being like, I just jumped straight into English. I don't even say like, oh, do you speak English? I'm like, I know you do. We've been through this a million times. Like, I'm just going to go in. We're going to figure it out. If we have to bust out German together, we're going to do it. But like, for the sake of respect of your time and respect of my time, let's get this moving. But then you'll be like, I'm gonna learn German perfectly, and you think you have it perfect. The person you're talking to fixates on the one word you got wrong, and they correct you, and you're like, did I stutter? Like, did you even hear what I was saying? So, yeah.
Nope, nope.
No, 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 no.
Doesn't so sometimes at the beginning I had the feeling, you have the feeling that you are mentally incapable in speaking whenever
Yes.
you try to speak a foreign language, and you always have that fear is they think I'm dumb.
Yeah. No, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I would not even, yeah, they think I'm dumb or that I like can't articulate how I feel because you're
Exactly,
you're restricted
exactly.
by vocabulary where you're like, I
Yeah,
like that. And you're like isn't correct. So what I found, especially in my job, where like later I was working for like corporate German television, and I was one of the first Americans there, um, especially to a bigger degree where I was leading a department. People would speak to me in German, and I would respond in English, unfiltered. I would, speak a little bit slower than I normally do, but I would still convey my emotions and my thoughts 100% in my native language. And they understood
absolutely.
me, but they would respond the same way back in German, and I could understand them. And I worked with those people for 8, 9 years, and we never both spoke the same verbal language together, but we conveyed what we wanted to each other. And I felt like that was like the closest you'll have to like having a translator in your ear. Was like, I
Correct,
understand it.
correct.
I got you. I don't fucking know what article this is or what ending of word em or en or er or as. I have no idea. But I want to tell you that we're breaking a law. Or like whatever. Like
Yeah,
just cut to the chase, dude. And I feel like that was a good solution. Like getting into deeper tax and like more complicated German words that you're going to learn one time, you weirdly remember those. Where you're like, oh, of course, that's the German regulation for blah, blah, blah. But other words you hear a million times and you're like, I have no idea what that is. You're like,
mentioning that, I have an interesting question.
sure.
Do you have a German word which you think that has no English translation?
I mean, the classic one is like Schadenfreude. That's the one everyone loves,
Absolutely.
right?
I
But,
have I have one as well,
okay.
and I give you mine first. Do you know Mitdenken?
Mm-mm.
So usually you say Mitdenken when someone is thinking with the situation.
Okay.
Like you said, that lady said, um, she took your card and said, no, no, you don't have to change your card. You just put a stamp. She was Mitdenken.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I remember this one. Okay.
So for me, that one that has not really an English translation because yeah, of course you can say thinking with the situation or
Or
thinking
like
or acting accordingly.
contemplating or, yeah, exactly.
Exactly. But in a word, you cannot really express it so good as you would with a German word.
Right. I had a whole book on these and I forget what it was called, but it had like the fear of the end of an escalator. There's a German word, or like, another one people always say to me is like "jein," like yes and no.
Yeah,
And in
absolutely.
America,
Absolutely.
it's not maybe, because maybe is a potential
Nope.
of either way. This is like
Nope.
yes and no at the same exact time.
Yes.
You're some correct and you're some wrong. Um, and then they also have like doch, which is like
Oh, that's a good one.
you
Oh,
hear it a
that's a
lot,
crazy one.
and I almost thought it was like a curse word, because people like the kids would say it, but it would be like you hear it here would be like dude or bro or what the hell. There they'd be like man, And you're
Doch.
like, what? And then they go, duh, which is like, um, say
How would you
what?
explain doch? How would you explain doch?
It's basically like, say what? Like, what?
Oh.
Like, what are you trying to say? It's almost rhetorical. It's almost, you're almost like fist bumping while you say it in a weird way, but
But it's
I don't,
also it's also used in a different way when you say when you try to so for example you tell me something. So I heard it in a different way at least as well. Like when you're trying to explain me something and I would not agree with you and I would have a different opinion and you would say, okay, but I'm right. And I would say doch.
right. But that's a little bit of the
And
say
this
what, like not in the
ex-
goofy way, but it's like,
correct.
okay, what you got for me? It's the
Okay.
hit back with the tennis paddle.
Okay.
But
Yeah, okay.
I feel like it's one of those like advanced German words when you hear it, you're like, huh, I forgot. Like forgot I could say that, you know?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
You didn't get genau.
Genau I liked, but I feel like there's certain phrases that you learn and then you're like, no way people say that. You know what I mean? Like that's so basic. It's like affirmative to everything. And people say that. People really do. They stick to the
Eh,
same. You learn a phrase that's like, my name is blank. And here you could say, like, I'm Hank, or like, yo, is Hank, or like whatever. There they say, like, my name is Hank.
Yes.
And then they
Yes.
also
For
say, genau. There's no a million ways to repeat that. It's
And
just,
I have to
yeah.
say, one of the things that surprised me a lot when I learned in the German classes, like the standard sentence to order something in the restaurant, like ich hätte gerne, I don't know, X, Y, or whatever.
Yep.
And I thought that no, that there is no chance that people are using that on a
No,
daily
they do.
basis. And I went with colleagues for food, and I realized, okay, well, because like you said, I would just say, oh, give me that and that, or I would like to have that and that, but I would not always use exactly the same
It's a
sentence.
script. And I feel like it's a script and there's a lot of it, right? Like when you want to pay, when you want to order, when you say your name, when you say hello and goodbye, when you talk to the doctor, when you go to whatever, you learn these phrases and these ways of formulating sentences that just stick in your brain and you almost forget what they are, right? Because it's just like you say it out, hey, can we pay? Can I pay with card? Can I do whatever? There's less
Mit
like
Karte,
freedom. Right.
mit Karte, hier oder zum Mitnehmen.
Yep. Exactly. But there's no random small talk. They also know you don't speak German, but even for my German speaking friends, they do the same thing, right? Like they say the same lines. And I think in my head, it started to screw with my own train of thought where you almost start to think linearly all the time. There's no like branching off divergent points where you say like, hey, I'd like to order blah, blah, blah. And they say, oh, well, don't you want to hear our specials because blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, throw in that too. It's like stick in a lane, pick it, go for it. Super predictable, kind of easy because once you learn those scripts, you're kind of safe for a lot of ways, no matter where you go in Germany. Um, but if it's like you
And
want to
I
mix it up and get funky, you throw them off. Yeah.
and I also thought that at the beginning it's complicated, but at the end I realized that in fact what they have a mass of 8,000 9,000 words which they
Mm-hmm.
are combining, and
Mm-hmm.
I think you see it for yourself that if they don't know a word, they just build one out of three different words in one
Yeah, they
word,
just combine it
like
all,
they
or they take an English word.
or they take an English word, which is oh my God, I have to ask you this. Oh, did you open a Pandora's box for me?
Yeah.
Did you ever heard have you ever heard words misused? The English
Oh,
words misused?
all the time. Like uh,
Which is your favorite one?
handy, handy for sure. So when I got there, there's all these handy shops, and you always hear about like sex tourism and shit in Europe, and I'm like, wow, just like giving out giving out hand jobs anywhere. Handy is a cell phone, and there'd be handy shops, handy deals, handy promos. I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. This Berlin place is really nuts. So that was the craziest thing where it's like I'd have friends visit and they'd see handy everywhere, and there'd be like the friend staring at it and then looking at you, and you're like, it's a cell phone. They're like, right. Hmm. But I'm just like, out of all stupid words to get stuck up on, that's the worst one you guys could have picked. But
Um,
yeah, what about you?
for me, it's becoming.
Okay. Why?
Bec- because usually, in German, when you say ich bekomme, is
Hmm.
I receive.
Right.
And they all think that it means exactly the same
Right.
in
Okay.
English, which is not the case. So I heard so many times in the restaurant, I become a schnitzel.
Like, dude, no. No, I never heard that one. That's funny, but it makes a lot of sense, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, because of the translation. But still,
No,
it
and
kills
it's they
me.
say it 100% confidence, and I think part of Germany, which is awesome, is like if you figure out all the rules and you figure out all the structures, you're gonna have a great time. If you are pushing it or you're trying to like go out on a limb or risk something, you're not going to find a lot of assistance to help you because you're breaking the social
Correct.
norm. You're breaking a social contract that's in place for so long, and you're just going to cause resistance. So, like at work, socially, living in places, whatever, if you go against the norm, even minorly, and it doesn't check boxes and there's not a particular form for it, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to have a horrible time and you're going to hate it. So either just like buckle up and go along with it and, do what you want to do in between. Talk to people and figure out like, hey, this is my end goal. I'm trying to do this. They'll help you do it. They're like some of the most helpful societies I've met of like people willing to go out of the way you find the right person, obviously. But you still got to play the game. You still got to check all the
Correct.
boxes. You got to do everything legitly, even dumb shit where you're like, I have wasted hours doing this. This would have been one phone call in America. I at least know in Germany that it's like regulated and it will be done like probably better. I don't know. But you can't go Wild West on it.
I still have two things that I have to address before we go
Yeah.
on the back trip. What was your first impression, or what was your first opinion, or how did you took the fact that Sunday everything is
Oh
closed?
my God. I just talked to someone about this. It's like you have this city, Berlin is like 3, 4 million people. It's alive, right? It's dense. Everything is 5, 6, 7 floor apartments all unstacked together, multiple buildings behind each other. You can get sushi at the middle of the night. You can get a burrito right in the first thing in the morning. There's no stupid breakfast menu. Like you can get anything you want. There's bars that never close, like legit since the 70s. There's places that just never close, and not clubs, just normal bars. There's restaurants serving meals at midnight, but you want to go to the grocery store on a Sunday. What is wrong with you? Like, you want to get a thing of milk or flour, even at the convenience store, they can't sell it to you. They won't even sell it to you. They have it right there, but they can't sell it to you because it's a Sunday. You're super sick and you need meds to feel better to go to bed. That's your problem. You got to wait till Monday. It's like this whole illusion is like where you know, which is what I love about Berlin in particular is like if you want to do anything good, bad, harmful, positive, Berlin, there'll be a group or a place to do that safely, unsafely, whatever you want. Just better not fucking grocery shop on a Sunday. Like, do
I
whatever you want. Just keep it away. So my first reaction was like, I went from grocery shopping only on Sundays because there were less people in America doing it to there's just like a wasted day. So you fight it for years, right? Probably same for you, where you're like, oh my God, I'm going crazy. I have to do something. So then you just figure out a better routine. And Germans in particular, like because the refrigerator system, because they really like fresh food, which props to them. A lot of people go to the grocery store like every day and buy just for that meal, except for Sundays. So Saturdays are zoos. It's insane there. Before a holiday, it'll be closed Sunday, Monday, and then reopen Tuesday or whatever day combo. And I think like COVID changed that a lot too, where people were shopping more like Americans, like shopping for the entire week or whatever. But
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
Sunday thing is such a waste of
I,
time.
I
Yeah.
I said this story a few times, but what we got used as a family that we do it on Thursday evening
Yeah.
because
Okay.
it's if you want to go on Saturday, it's like it's better do I don't
It's all
know
sold out.
better waste. It's
Yeah.
and it's a waste of time because you need at least double the amount of time that you normally need to do your normal shopping because of
Yep.
the amount of people that is there. But second, which is really most important, do you know why they are closed on Sunday?
I would assume like just remnants of religion and the rest stay. No?
This is what I thought as well, and that's why I researched for it.
Okay.
They started closing it somewhere in the 60s, 70s, when there was a family protest, and the official message of the protest was the Sundays belongs to my father. And it was as an argument to have the businesses closed, but like you said, it in some cases makes no sense. You have restaurants, you have bars which are open, you have everything. Like, okay, I can understand on the countryside, I don't know, I can
Sure.
understand this in the small cities, but in the case of Berlin, makes no sense.
Makes us, I mean, and that's the other thing is like there's always a clash between like small business, the convenience
Yeah.
stores, the Spadies,
Um,
yeah, and
and
more
maybe
established.
important to say that you are only allowed to have Sunday open if you, as a owner of the store, are working in the store. This is also available, valid in some states.
Right. And I would say too, like even if there's a convenience store, like Americans, we have convenience stores or like little markets.
Correct.
Those can be open and sell like beer and candy and snacks, but they can't sell groceries. So
Correct.
they'll like put blankets or like curtains over those things, but like everyone's got a spot where the guy doesn't give a shit. He recognizes you and I'll be like, "Hey man," and I'll still buy flour, or eggs, and he's like, I don't care. But
Yeah.
it is so rigid like that where and then there'll be like, protests that like Spadies, these convenience stores can't be open on Sundays either. And people are like, dude, who cares? Like
Yeah.
cat's out of the bag.
Correct.
But Berlin, it makes no
Correct.
sense. Small town, fair. Maybe where there's less stuff for like the one business and they give them a break. But like Berlin, it makes no sense.
Yeah. Especially because you have the store open. That's just crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, Hank, when did you start thinking, and I would guess now with your wife together, about leaving Germany?
The first thought I had was, well, I had just met my wife in 2013, or my girlfriend at the time, and I learned a lot about Germany in high school and the history, and I always had like a little bit of an interest. It wasn't really until, like my wife's family is German. They moved from Germany to America in the 80s.
Hmm.
I was like, okay, that's kind of cool, but like, it's still me. We hadn't even known each other 1 year. I think for me, what hit was it felt for the first time that it wasn't so far-fetched to live there over London or Tokyo or Vancouver, Canada, or whatever. It was like, hey, they're hiring a ton of people that do what I do. The internet was, more chatty and felt more real 10, 15 years ago than it feels now. I guess I'll just try. And I never thought about it that much. And then once I got this job, I think I got accepted for this job in March and I moved in July. During that time, I was like, oh my God, I have so much to learn and do. But it felt like even a year before, I was trying to learn the language to like, bond with my girlfriend at the time who spoke it growing up. But like, she didn't care. Like she grew up in America, so she spoke German at home. But for me, I felt like the first kind of thoughts I had was like, I got to get out of DC. And you see all these subreddits that are like, I want out or grass is always greener.
American City. Yeah.
Yeah, I never saw those. I was more just like, well, if I want change, I got to do it myself. No one's going to change for me. So yeah,
And how did the loop back started?
the loop back, dude. Well, it's an interesting one.
Because that's why I asked you about living
Yeah.
in Germany because I want to understand how did the loop back started.
I think that's the misconception people have with living in Germany, right? Is like all I do is travel to these cool little German towns and all I do is go to every city in Europe all the time. But in reality, you just live your life, right? You do the same thing you would do in your normal country. Like I go to work, I come home, I watch TV, I cook dinner, I go to sleep. I'm not always on the road because then otherwise I wouldn't have a job. So we did a lot of cool travels, with vacation. The vacation policy in Germany was great. I had 30 days a year, overtime go to vacation. Super awesome. Loved it. What a lot of Germans do, which drove me insane, is they don't do like 1 day off, 2 days off, a week off. They do the whole dump, baby. They do all of it in one go. They totally reset. And the first time that happened, the guy who hired me took a vacation for a month and he went to like Thailand. And I assumed he was going to quit when he came back because he dumps all his vacation. That's what you do in America. And doing that was like the first time I felt myself again in years. Like I forget where I went. We did a trip for 2 weeks and I like my brain reset. You really rest. You feel like deeply chilled. I know what I want to do. And a lot of people in Germany do that in the winter because it's so dark. It's kind of the same weather every single day. At least in Berlin, there's no snow or like cool nature. It's just kind of bitter cold for bitter cold's sake. Learn to love it, but you also like hate it because people are gone and culture kind of dies in the cold and it's the sun setting. So everyone would leave. And for us, we never did. We always stuck around because I like the Christmas markets and I'm not religious, but I still like, the decor and whatever. 2013, 2023, we were like, all right, this winter, let's go to Vietnam. Everyone goes to like Asia or somewhere warmer. So this January, we're going to go to Vietnam. And we were there and I'm like, wow, I'm in shorts. People are super friendly. Everyone's really chatty. I don't want to go back. And not like a
Oh,
normal vacation, where you're like, oh, I love being on vacation. I never want to go home. That was like I'm going to go back to 3 more months of gray skies and like icy cold. No, I gotta be, and we'd always, like I said, with the apartment thing, always been kind of looking to move in Berlin or move outside of the city. And I was like, where else can we move to in Germany? And you get in the same housing problems where you're like, you either have to have $1 million ready to go, or you have to have a really good local community in a small town. And for me, then I was like, all right, my parents are getting older. I have nieces and nephews. Like, I should probably meet them. And then you're like, well, wait, in America, I can go live wherever I want because we have you know, we're U.S. residents, but also like you get in a car, buy an RV. There's no TÜV or stupid overly regulated markets. Like I'm not crossing countries. Like I can just stay on public lands and at national parks. And we're in Vietnam, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like you're in these restrictions for so long that don't feel like restrictions, but they feel like the path you're supposed to follow. And then you're in a country that is totally crazy, like post communism. They're still communist, but they have iPhones, right? They're all kidding it, but they're like pretty globalized. They all understand how the world works. Super accessible. People are just moving all over the place, and I'm like, yeah, I need change again. Same what I needed 10, 11 years ago. And I will tell you, leaving Germany takes just as long as moving to Germany. Um, it probably took 6 months to fully disconnect from, you know, deregistration with the city took a month. Getting rid of my bank accounts, getting rid of subscriptions where I'm like, hey, good luck charging that bank account. It's closed. Prove that you've left the country. I'm like sending in my tickets, like sending them a picture of me clearly in America, and they're like, I don't know, I think you're still here. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? Um, and you're still filing taxes. I mean, like I'm going to be filing taxes in Germany probably for a long time, but I'd say the need just came from like need of change again. Like I love Berlin. I understand. I never hated it there, and I didn't want to hate it. I didn't want to be reluctantly like I was when I left the United States the first time. But it just got to the point where I was like, I need change, and Germany's so unwilling to let us move internally because of like social, cultural barriers, um, and it's hard, right? Like small German towns, you know, this is not as easy to show up as Berlin, right? Like Berlin
And
was
Berlin is completely different, man. And trust
totally
me,
different,
now I know the difference between Berlin and the other and Germany completely because and it's a, because I was there a few times due to in business trips and so on, and I have to say it's a completely different world. It's a
totally
completely
different.
different world.
Well, like let's say in Germany, you go to like Lake Constance and you're like, this is beautiful. You can't just roll up there. You would need like a whole system in place. You're gonna have to do this whole roll through that I just described for the last hour again. You don't just pick up where you left off. You're re-registering. You're re-getting all these driver's licenses. You're getting a new visa. You're getting new bank accounts. You're doing all this. And I was like, man, am I just going to keep doing this forever? Right. And yeah, you know the drill, right? Where you're just like, am I about to put myself through it or do I just go home? What,
You are you are talking from my soul
yeah.
regarding the weather. The
No,
weather
yeah.
is something which is killing me, man. The fact that it's you have 6 months of darkness, most probably not 6 months, but at least
No,
five,
basically,
four,
right?
five.
Yeah,
Yeah, and this is something which is destroying me as well because it's not something which is. And I understand why people are depressed, and I
sure.
started to taking vitamin D so that I get
You
get
have
to
to.
survive at least. Absolutely.
Well, and people
And this,
people take it out on you almost. People are huge fucking
absolutely,
assholes
absolutely.
because you're
In that
commuting.
time, in
Yeah,
that time,
yeah, exactly. You're commuting in the dark, you get home in the dark. So I would like get on the train at like 7:15 or 7:30, get home at 6 p.m. and it's pitch black. And then you got to go to the grocery store and interact with your neighbors. Like, no. So COVID bought us more time, but
but you
yeah,
know the crazy thing is, and I have to tell you this. Germany is more like this grinding mentality of the US.
right.
And if you compare it with Spain, with Portugal, with Italy,
Hmm.
there is a let's say a better working life balance there. There is a
Yeah.
saying in Europe, and I said it in one of the previous episodes as well. Germany is you're leaving to work,
Yes.
and the other the other European countries, like as I said, Spain, Portugal, Italy, you are working just to survive, which
Right.
makes a lot of sense. You are not
Sure.
living only for your work, and
Right.
I think that makes a huge difference in how do you put things. Um,
No, that's exactly it, right? Is like a lot of countries, your personality is your job. And a lot of people in Germany, like you know the joke of like you meet someone new, how much is your apartment? What's your job? It's like,
what's your job?
right. And you're like, "Dude, we
It
could
doesn't
be
matter. It
friends."
does
No, yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
it
have no
doesn't matter.
idea.
Yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't
yeah.
matter.
Um, where did you move back? Did you move back to DC?
So we flew into DC because we have a dog. So that was like one of the ports you could fly into easily.
You had to, yeah.
Yeah, so we drove from Berlin to Frankfurt with the dog and then flew from Frankfurt to DC. My family's like 3, 4 hours outside of DC. We stayed there for about a month and then we went to Colorado, so in the middle of the country where my wife's family is. Um, yeah, it's back. And then from there we like bought an RV and kind of like got our life back together. Like all of our stuff from Germany that we kept got mailed to Colorado. Like we didn't take that much stuff, but you know, clothes and mementos. Um, but then yeah, now we're on the west coast of the US and kind of just like exploring as we go. But it's a lot of driving. It's like 16,000 miles in the last 8 months. So yeah, it's a lot.
Nice.
It's more, I mean, we didn't have a car in Germany, so you're also like how to drive again is kind of funny. Um, but yeah, it's totally different where, like camping in Europe is very highly regulated, very integrated into where you are. You don't feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. Here, like we've been 30, 40 minutes from like cell service and like don't see anyone for a week. And you're like America is huge, but it is massive. And there's also
It is, yeah.
hundreds of miles with no one there. Not a single person is there. And then randomly like a Dairy Queen or like a gas station or something. And it's also like looking at America from a German perspective, they went through what they did, in the first half of the century through World War One and World War Two and the Cold War. They have a lot of critique of social and societal problems that America was always the police of. And now seeing that happen from the outside, we thought we'd move here, you know, while everything was, I guess, fine because there wasn't the election yet or anything. And when we showed up, we're like, oh my God, this is crazy. But what you realize is like a lot of Americans are just like doing their own thing. Like the country is so massive with so many millions of people that, same in Germany, you meet people, people in southern Germany don't know the problems that's happening in Berlin. They kind of aware, but they're kind of just living their life. And we thought everyone would either have like a red hat or a blue hat in America. And you really just don't know. And especially with us that are like camping and exploring, other people are doing the same thing as us. They have the same background. There's like a common shared love for something. Um, that kind of like made us feel a little bit better, but we're still like weirded out, because we still have this German critical sense in our body of like, wow, things are crazy. Like you see the news and you're like, oh, that's like the other side of the country. Still the country, but yeah, it's weird.
Hank, you give me hope. I have to be honest because, and I'm a US fanboy.
Okay,
I'm a US fanboy, most probably brainwashed from the cliches happening in all the movies that I've seen
sure.
growing up. Most probably, and I was there last year with my wife and my kid. We had a road trip on the East Coast, which was amazing.
Awesome.
And we were planning to go there this year, and I'm afraid.
Yeah. And I will say like we had one of my best friends from Germany visit us a month ago in our camper outside of Seattle. And if he had flown to like Texas or something, I'd be like, don't go through there. Go through like a international hub that has some type of like backing of a blue state or something. Like somewhere that's foreigner friendly. But it's almost weird. Like we at first we were like not ashamed, but like afraid of the reaction we'd get when people ask where are you from and we say Germany because that's our home for the last 10, 11 years. When you start talking to people, they're like blown away how cool that is. And they're not just saying it to our face because people would just be like, ah, whatever. But they're like, why? Like, that's so crazy. How was it? Like, do you like it here? Is it nice? Do you think people are nice? Like, and you're like, I didn't expect to have a conversation with you. But,
It's crazy.
and we've had a few friends visit us now, some people over the winter in Colorado, and then my friend that came and visited us in Seattle, or more closer to Portland, but it doesn't matter. And then we're meeting up with someone who lived in Germany for 10 years with us, and then he moved back to his home in Vancouver. And he has the same reaction. He's like, you're always so afraid to come to America. Don't go to places that don't actively want you, right? Like that's the world rule. Like don't, fly
Correct.
to unsafe places. And he drove into America a week ago and did like national parks from Canada. And he's like, they're the nicest people on the planet. And I'm like, is there hope? Like shit's so crazy and fucked up and the world's so full of hate. And then you talk to the average person, not the outlier screaming at the grocery store. and they're just there to help you and talk to you and like, hey man, like we're traveling the country trying to find our home. They're like, oh, I'll give you a list of places to see. And you're like, I would never have that in Germany, right? Or, in Japan or in Italy or whatever. But then you see the news and you're also like, oh my God, should we move back to Germany? Um, but it's like we've been here 8, 9 months and like obviously we are Americans, but they don't know that. Like the random stranger, like we'll say random shit to each other in German and no one's like, hey, get at it. There's none of that. Like, because we're not going to those places. And I think that's the sad reality, but it's also like Europe as a whole is still smaller than the United States.
Correct.
You would
Correct. That's
never,
the next issue. Yeah.
right, you would never pick a country that's having like social unrest, political unrest, and go there and expect everyone to like bow down. But at the same
Correct.
time, you go to like London, no one gives a shit what you're doing, right? You go to like
Correct.
Stockholm, same thing. You go to like outskirts of Rome, you go to the beaches in France, like those are like more progressive spots. I think you have to play that game in the US a little bit. And it's sad because I always thought the United States was like this, less in the last 10, 15 years, but this like pinnacle of who shows up makes their
Is
community a better
welcome.
place. Exactly. And we're all from different places. Everyone's last names are all over the place. Like we met someone yesterday. He started talking to us at the campground and we said Germany. He's like, oh, my last name's like Auf der Heide. And he's like, I don't speak any German, but that's my last name. And you're like, that's so crazy because your family must have come here at one point, probably on the East Coast, and moved out to Seattle. And like you don't
Correct.
get that in Germany. You get people that have shown up for a little bit and then left or maybe integrated more, like we did. But America is so like big that you're like, oh, we're moving to an Italian community, or like we're gonna find a bunch of other expats that are kind of here, or more international city. And we were really sad seeing what happened in the news. And like you said, like you wanted to show up and go, and then you realize shit's so complicated, but also when you get stuck in it, you're only doom scrolling, right? And you're looking for the news wants to tell you things that you want to hear to anger you to watch it more. And there is a lot of horrible things happening in the country, don't get me wrong. But it's also like day to day, you can protest every single day. Every single
Correct.
day.
I
Yeah.
I have a so that you understand the level on which I'm a US fanboy. I have a New York
Yeah.
Times subscription that I'm
Nice.
because that's the newspaper that I'm reading since years now,
Hmm.
and it's not even dumb scrolling. And I have to be honest, it's really reading the news and seeing people, and sometimes really Reddit of experience of
Yeah.
people being stopped at the border. And
Yep.
the problem is that I don't want to take that risk with a small kid. My son is
No,
7 years old, and I will never take that risk with him.
no. And we've, and this is the same thing that happened with the I think it was like the Syrian refugees in Germany years ago, where a lot of them were
Exactly.
afraid of traveling. And I knew a couple of those guys, and they were like, I can come, but I can't go back. Same thing with Ukraine. And um, I think in the US now, I was afraid of coming back and being like, well, my wife's family are immigrants. We have no connection to this country whatsoever. We don't even have a driver's license or ID. Are people going to hate me? And like, we don't have a credit system here. We don't have healthcare. We don't have phones. Like, I think if we went to Texas or like Alabama, or I hate to say it, one of the shithole states, but, and I have family in Texas. I like it there, but you know what I mean? Like somewhere that's not willing to accept
Yeah.
foreigners, you're going to have a bad time. But I think there
Yeah.
is a lot of resistance and a lot of vocality happening here where we have met other Germans here who are like, why are you here? And we're like, why are you here? And they moved here 5, 10 years ago. And you're like, okay, so there is some good on a human level. But for you coming with your kid, man, no. Unless you're on the West
Exactly.
Coast. Unless you're on the West Coast, totally different out here.
Okay.
Totally, yeah.
Also good to know.
Yeah.
You mentioned a lot of things, Hank, but I would ask you what hit hardest about coming home.
I think it was, we had this a lot. We'd come to a friend's wedding over the last 10 years or go to a family event or Christmas or whatever and be like, oh, should we move back? And you probably have that right now being in Romania where you're like, I could. And every year we would say no. And when we moved back and I had to get a driver's license and I had a German driver's license and I read online that I had to retake the test, like behind the wheel and the paper. And I was like, oh shit. Because in Germany, I would, right? You're going to have to pay or you're going to have to do the first aid class, all this stuff. Maybe you fail, maybe 6, 7 months later. And I thought, well, I'm just going to call like the Department of Motor Vehicles. And I talked to this lady and she's like, oh, no, you're good. Just go there and like tell them you want to transfer it from Germany. That's a country we'll accept the transfer from. And I was like, you just saved me like months, back to this of like, you took the extra minute. So I show up to this driver's office in the middle of nowhere, Virginia, and the woman's like, I don't know what this is. Hold on. And she asked someone else. They asked someone else. They're like, all right, cool. Like, I left with it. Like, there's no crazy red tape. They were willing to talk to us. They're like, oh, were you driving there? Do you have a record? Do you have anything? Like, they verify it. They're like, okay, cool. Great. Like, done. It wasn't lingering for months. So I think that hit the hardest was like, I can talk to someone and we can solve a problem today. Like, I can open a bank account right now. I can get a
That's right.
phone
Mm-hmm.
right now. Like, we went to buy a car and I was with friends in Germany that bought cars, but like, you don't get it right then a lot of the time. They're processing it or whatever. We left that day with the car and I'm like, I felt like we gave ourselves half a year to readjust and it took a week to
Ah,
on
nice,
paper adjust.
nice,
Mentally, I
nice.
still ask to pay with card everywhere I go. And they're like, what? The lady yesterday was like, honey, that's all you can pay with. I'm like, okay. Like, I still try to go in to pay for gas sometimes, not at the machine or whatever.
Yeah,
But that hit the hardest of like, things move so fast here that are good and bad. Like, you can have a problem that day with your car, it could be solved that day. You could have like a medical thing, you can get an appointment that morning, it's done. Germany, you have to know the rhythm and the move and you know when to pick your times and when to call or when to show up and just wait. So that hit the hardest, but I think the day of the election, back to that of being like, oh, should we move back? Like that was what my brain went to. And you're like, no, we're here. All our shit's here. My dog's here. Like, um, we're gonna try to make the best out of this, right? And like find our next place in the world. Um, but those hit the hardest. I would say like the driver's license will forever stand out in my head of she's like, I don't know what this is, but you're okay. I was like, all right, cool. She's like,
that's
yeah.
nice. That's a home that gives you a kind of a home feeling that you are most probably missing.
It was a little bit of that, like, what's your address? And we're like, oh man, you can't, don't worry about like it doesn't matter because it's in Germany. And they're like, oh, okay. Like, do you have a local address? I was like, yeah, my parents. They're like, okay, that's fine. No form. Like, all right, whatever. You see, you
I
get
know
mail.
Anmeldung. It's
Nope.
boring. No, that's I don't understand it.
Yeah, totally not.
I'm just joking.
No, no,
I'm
yeah.
just joking.
Well, no, no. And they were like, we thought we need proof or whatever. And my parents are like, no, you're fine. Just go. And I'm like, oh, come on. Like, you might need like like in Germany, you have like a utility bill or something.
Yeah, yeah.
No one cared.
Um, Hank, how did the period that you spent in Germany changed how you see America?
It's a really good question. I think I left America as a 23-year-old white guy who spoke English. Everything, you kind of take it at face value, right? Like, that there's good and bad in the world. There's different sides of every story, but you also see, because you're younger, that there's, you know, poverty stricken areas places that have way too much money, places that still suck but have too much money. There's places that suck that are really cool. Um, you see a mix of a lot, but you don't understand it. I think Germany and Germans in particular, if they want to say something to you, they say it right to your face. If they don't agree with you, they're going to say it right to your face. There's no like, you get this in America and you see it a lot on television. Someone does something really bad and everyone kind of tries to be cool with them. You know what I mean? Where like you're almost like trying to appease them in a way where you're like, oh man, that was not good. But like, how about that sports game? In Germany, they're like, no, that's the wrong thing. That's super wrong of you. I don't want to be your friend. Or like, you see it wrong. I'm going to tell you why you see it wrong.
Das
So I think,
geht gar nicht.
well, it's also just like, if I don't want to be your friend, I don't want to have this conversation. And
Korrekt.
I hated the bluntness of it, but I'm like, this would solve so many problems in America that they're waking up to now. Where, like right before the election, you saw politicians calling out these things. I was like, you had 8 years to wake your ass up. And now you're saying it's fake. Now you're saying Donald Trump's lying. Now you're saying he doesn't help people. You had 8 years to put your pants on and go outside and be an adult. But everyone's like, well, there's a lot of things that he's saying that aren't true. And I'm like, dude.
Yeah.
And what was the quote Trump said that there's bad people on both sides. It's
On
like,
both sides. Yeah.
it's like, dude. And in Germany, they would have been like, shut the fuck up, point one out right now.
I
Yeah.
like the way in which before the German election he said that he's supporting the AfD, and after the CDU won, he said I always supported the CDU. No, you didn't.
Well, and
No.
even with that, people don't give up, right? Like people,
Yeah, but
like, you're just like, well, I think especially in German politics too, like all the parties forming coalitions, they all kind of bend a little bit to figure it out. But then it's like with the rise of the AfD, you're like, oh my God, you're watching the US playbook happen here. And you saw all the anti AfD marches, you saw all the
yeah,
ads the other way.
and you saw an 85% people, 85 of the people were there for the election to vote only
Right.
because they knew. 85%, man.
And then when you
I
get here,
think
like
that's a
barely, not even half of Americans who could
not
vote.
even half, yeah.
Well, and what's crazy is like, I've had these conversations with people where they're like, oh man, crazy what's happening with Trump. I was like, oh yeah, like we voted absentee. And they're like, oh, I didn't vote. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like,
Exactly.
what? And I get
Exactly.
there's
You
excuses, but
don't.
you could vote for like a month, right? Like you could mail it in, you could go drop it off. But this person like complained to me for maybe 20 minutes about like, oh, it's crazy, blah, blah, blah. And then to find out they didn't even vote, I'm like, you didn't take the basic step.
No vote, no opinion.
Yeah, but it's also like, well, have you been worn down over the last 10 years of all this shit? So I think Germany woke me up in that way to bluntly be like, why do you think that's wrong? What do you
Mhm.
think about this situation could be better? And I think the bluntness is weird for people because they don't know how to react, but they're also catching them off guard where you really do get a genuine reaction from them. Um, but it's also like getting rid of that fakeness of like, I don't really want to be your friend, or like chat further if you just don't care about me as a person or whatever. So I think like that part stayed with us from Germany a lot. Um, the bluntness in the good way. Yeah.
The direct honesty.
Direct,
Let's call
yes,
it like
that's a nice
this.
way to put it. Right.
Yeah. What stayed with you from Germany? I don't know, habits, mindset, lifestyle, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. So we were talking about this yesterday. I feel like Germans for meals, when they make it home, in general, could be pretty basic, right? Like a couple ingredients, salami and bread and cheese. Call it
Arbeitsbrot.
call it a day.
Arbeitsbrot.
Exactly.
Yes.
Pick out a random thing. It doesn't need to be a fancy thing with a bunch of side dishes and whatever. You also don't need that much, right? I think our eating habits changed dramatically where I'm like, basic shit's fine. Not even survival food, but it's like bread and meat is like banging good. Like that's preferred. Um,
Like you can live without the sauces.
yeah, or all the random sides or whatever. I think that stayed with us a lot. I think the bluntness stayed with us a lot, but also like I think in America in particular, it's a very consumerist society, right? We're always like buying, selling, purchasing random shit. Germany, people remember little purchases they make throughout the day to an extent where like I would owe someone money and they'd bring it up months later, like, oh, you owe me €5. I'm like, dude, I would have forgotten about that immediately. But then I became that way of like, oh shit, Austin bought an appetizer last time. I owe him 7.95. Like that instant trade of currency doesn't exist here because it's so much faster moving and digital and people just forget. But also like Germans remember money stuff in a funny, weird way. You've probably experienced this too, where it's like you even think like €1 or €2, they'll remember that. And
Absolutely.
not a stingy way.
Absolutely.
It's just like that's the social contract that you make. Um, so that stuck with my wife and I where like we'll owe each other money even though we have a shared bank account. And I'm like, all right, we gotta stop. We got like she's like, I bought dinner tonight. I was like, it's all the same. It's all the same. It doesn't matter. So yeah.
Um, I I know the answer to this, but
Sure.
still I need to ask the question. Are you the same person who left US?
No. No. I think I th- I think about this a lot. Like I look at old pictures of myself and almost don't recognize me. I thought leaving college or university, whatever, if I work really hard, put my head down, destroy my afternoons and destroy my night, work 20-hour days, I will progress further in life. I was miserable, had no hobbies. Basically, like my work was my hobby. And I also just like looked to the future all the time. What am I going to do in 10 years? How am I going to retire? Where am I going to live? What Germany taught me, and the best lesson I had was there, it was like, you live in the moment, right? You're in the now. You do things today that might not affect tomorrow. They might not. I don't know. That person who emerged, in 2018 when this kind of hit me of like value my own time, like know when to walk away from work, social shit, bullshit with bureaucracy, like value yourself first. And like looking in on that, that's the person who came out. So it's like the second work's done, man, I'm done. I'm out. You can email and call me all you want, but it's not going to get to me. Like my brain just disconnects. And seeing friends, dear close friends in the US that struggle with that, the work life balance, or traveling on vacation with their family and taking their computer with them so that they can check in, I'm like, you're killing yourself. Slowly, you haven't realized it yet, but you are. And that's the person who came out is yeah, a little more in tune with myself and also knowing what the world looks like and that no one gives a shit about your stupid problems when you're 1,000 miles away. They're just doing with their own thing, Yeah, they don't even care. So, yeah.
Not at all. What's your you said you are searching for it, but what's your relationship with the idea of home now, Hank?
Great question. I would say for years, everyone would ask, when are you coming home? People that don't even, like live in different states as me, different side of the country. Hey man, how's Germany? Blah, blah. Oh yeah, when are you coming home? I'm like, well, I am home, right? It's my apartment. And um, you can tell yourself that as much as you want, but where does your brain reset to in the middle of the night where you wake up and you don't know where you are and you kind of have to pee, but you don't know if you need to get up and go to the bathroom or not. And your brain goes, where am I? We all know that feeling. Am I safe? Am I in my room? Am I in my bed? And I want to say for years, I woke up and thought I was in Boulder, Colorado, where I went to university. And even though I was waking up in Germany, same apartment, like I said, forever, And when that shift happened and I woke up in my own apartment, basically, I was like, am I a Berliner? And I remember saying that out loud with a friend. They're like, dude, you've been here like 9 years, at the time, or 8 years. You've been here longer than us. I was like, oh, I would never call myself that until like the last year we lived there. But even when we moved back to the United States, people were like, oh, you're going home. I'm like, no, dude, all my shit's here. Like, Berlin is my home. I know the streets by name. I know how to walk across the city. I've done it a million times. Where I was walking like 10, 15 kilometers a day. I know it like the back of my hand. I don't know shit in America. Now my concept of home is my RV, I guess. But still, when I say like, oh yeah, how's things back home? I mean like my street in Berlin. So I don't know if that'll break out of my head. When I still wake up here, I wake up in Berlin and I still like read the news. I still talk to my friends every day and like wake up at 5 in the morning and text them. And I don't, and there's like the Tupac thing, home is where the heart is, right? And I'm like, well, my heart is somewhere that doesn't exist anymore. It's totally places that aren't there. When you go back, they're not that way. And you can be nostalgic, you can also be reminiscent on things, but it's like going back to living in the now, it's like what would I call home? And I'm like, I guess where my dog is. Plain and simple. Like he doesn't
Makes
care.
sense.
He's just happy to be involved, right? Um, yeah, it's a really good question. I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, it's something that you you will find out, but you
Sure.
don't have to know. And I think you just said we are searching for home.
Yeah.
So, and I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um, Hank was an extreme fun conversation. I
Dude, I
have to
love
say it.
this.
I enjoyed the hell out of it. I really enjoyed the hell out of it.
Glad
I
to
have to
hear it.
say, usually before I finish, I have a round of rapid fire
All
questions,
right.
tailored on the guest.
Sure.
So I would try it. Currywurst or burger?
It depends where. I would say if it's an old school currywurst stand, hands down. If it's original Burgermeister that's under the subway station in the old cast iron bathroom at 2 in the morning, that. Any of the other shit, I'd rather just not eat.
Which makes sense.
Yeah,
Makes sense. Absolutely. Um, you said you didn't have a car in Germany, right?
I did for 1 year,
Okay,
and then
so
I
then I
sold it.
still have ask you the question. Autobahn or Route 66?
The idea of Route 66 or what's really there now?
The idea.
I said Autobahn. It was fun. It's like a driving experience, right? There's no crap. You're not pulling over on the side of the road. There's not a million distractions. It's also nice
There is
road, right?
there is no speed limit.
Right.
There is
I
no
got I
speed
did
limit.
get a speeding ticket on the Autobahn. That was my final straw. Like those one spots like under bridges where there's the things? I got that. It was like $50, whatever. But yeah. Yeah.
Still, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. It happens.
Um, best and worst German word.
I think the best German word, I don't know, I'm still stuck on genau. Um, and I would say that or like, I feel like my brain is like skipping on certain words that I used to make fun of a lot because they were so funny. Um, yeah, maybe go with genau because you just hear it so much and it's so sharp of a word that you literally hear it over other people's conversations. Oh, genau. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. No idea what you're agreeing to, but whatever. Uh, Worst German word. I would say anything that has the word krank in it. anything health related just makes my like skin crawl. Krankenkasse, Krankenversicherung, anything with Versicherung in it, insurance, you know is going to be complicated as fuck. So when you see it in an emails thing, Versicherung, I'll go with that. That's the worst one. Any type of insurance, you know it's going to be a long email. You know it's going to be a penalty. You know they're going to send you a new card. So that word I started to dread. Yeah,
Absolutely with you. I have to say,
nice.
for me, the word Krankenhaus
Yeah, you're just like,
sounds so wrong because why it has to be a home of the sick
yeah,
guys?
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
It's yeah, that's my
It, you dread it, right? Like it just sounds so like gloomy and not for me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Weirdest thing you do in America that's 100% a German habit.
We hang dry all our clothes. Still, in an RV, it's like a disaster. Like literally, and you've done trips with Germans where like there'll be dryers or whatever, and you're like, just fucking dry your clothes, and they're like, no,
Oh,
no, doesn't
nope,
matter what doesn't matter what the material is, they will hang dry it. We
nope.
still we'll hang shit in the inside of our car just to dry it out, but like we do that. We're reluctant to AC air conditioning. Um, but I think those are the weirdest things. And we take bags everywhere. We take tote bags everywhere we go. We refuse to use the store bags. And I know there's a push in the US, but people will bring one bag and buy 10 bags worth of shit. And I'm like, who are you kidding? We'll have 10 bags with us. We're ready. So, yeah, there you go, man. There you go. It's so weird. That's like, we have a million tote bags, and you have your favorite one, you have the second favorite one, you have all this stuff. But yeah, yeah.
Crazy,
It's
crazy. How
funny.
small is the world? um, One thing that every American should experience in Germany.
I think being totally lost. I think I think going somewhere and not staring at your phone, not GPSing, just wandering. Like these cities, some of them were designed. There's ways to get everywhere if you follow one road. Some towns go fucking nowhere. And just driving out into places where you don't recognize the signs, you don't recognize the landscapes, and stopping somewhere, getting a shitty sandwich, prosciutto on bread. That's it. No sauce, no toppings. Heaven forbid if there's anything green. Asking the guy which way to go and them telling you, I think is such a uniquely weird experience of like, this is what we love in America. We go somewhere, we'll go to dinner and be like to the waiter or waitress, what's cool here? What would I do if I had one day here? And they're like, I don't know. I've never thought about it. I'm like, I've had that conversation a million times in Germany. But I think getting totally lost. Do that. Don't go to the basic bullshit tourism things. They're really boring. I've done them all too many times. You're not going to know what Germany's like. You're going to be going to a theme park. Like, really go there and explore the country and see it for what it is. I think that's my advice.
My nicest trip to New York was take with my wife for 4 days, and we just walked
Yeah.
the whole city.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely
Just
walked the whole city.
go in somewhere, look. If it's not cool, keep moving. Like, that's Berlin in a
Yeah.
nutshell, right? Like, I would walk almost the same loop every day and see something different.
Um, One thing every German should know about Americans.
I think that the biggest takeaway I've had is Americans have a fakeness to them. I think depending on where you are. Hey, how's your day? Good, good. Moving on. I think inherently Americans care more than they should about what you think and what you're doing in a good way. So if you go to someone and you genuinely are lost or confused, they'll stick with you until the problem's solved. We've had so many things where like we've hit a hiccup in the road or like gotten lost, and it's like in Germany when someone asks for directions, you're like, "Yep, that way. See you. Good luck." They'll go with you. And like my wife hit a bench and damaged our car, and there's a huge dent in the front of it. It was really funny. And I'm out there fiddling with it, and Germans would just walk by you. That's fine. It's your own business, right? 5 or 6 people came by with tools and were like fixing this so we could keep driving. And I'm like, I don't have anything to pay you with. They're just doing it and chatting. And you're like, where in the world would I have this and not think you're robbing me? Or like, so I think the biggest thing from Germany to Americans is like, there are pieces of shit everywhere. The average American, the average individual American is a good person. And I forgot that for years. I think a lot of the world
100%
did,
correct.
right? And we all see the
Absolutely.
bad, but like they want to do good. The average person.
Absolutely.
The ideal average person wants to do good. And you probably
No
experienced this
red or
too, right? Like,
no red no red or blue hat. The normal average person.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. The average person. The average,
Yeah.
if whether they're real or not, you know?
Um Hank, the last question that stays on the paper. I have had a guest who said that as an expat, you belong everywhere and nowhere.
Sure.
Do you think is that correct?
I think of it as like chapters in a book, where one chapter you're somewhere and you're a certain character's perspective, and then magically on the next page, it's a whole different character in a different setting in a different environment. But then you look at yourself, right, in the mirror. And for years in Germany, I wore this same setup, like wool shirt, maybe no hat, but my hair is crazy today. And I don't look like I'm from there, but I also don't look like I'm from the US. I'm kind of taking parts in places. Do I feel like if I went back to Germany, I'd fit right in? No. Right? Like it's been a year, but things have happened. I've changed in the year. Do I have one grounding spot? No. Do I want to find belonging somewhere? Also, maybe no. You know, I think a lot of us put our heart on the line trying to move to Germany and trying to really make it work. And you hit walls in some places, you succeed massively in others, but you don't want to be disappointed. And I think when you think of like, I belong somewhere, I belong not, it's like the tribal feel, right? Where you're like, we're all this group and you're that group. And I'm kind of like, there's a cool guy over there, and there's one guy over here who's kind of cool. That guy's kind of a dick. I don't associate with any of you. I'd rather just do my own thing. So I get a lot of that. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Hank, Hank, this was a really fun
I
conversation. I
love
said
this,
it
man.
again. I have to say it again.
I'm here to chat
Um,
whenever. If you had a special
I'm
topic of just bureaucracy, I'm there.
I'm happy. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
You're gonna have some emails coming in for sure
Nice.
in the next month. Hank, do people able to follow your journey somewhere? Are you documenting somewhere? I don't know, Instagram account or something.
Kinda. So I had an Instagram account, I had Twitter, I had Facebook for years, and then I quit it all. And now I'm posting on LinkedIn, which is the weirdest thing because that's what's funny. That's the funniest thing is like Instagram
Okay.
became during COVID, everyone posting how they're avoiding COVID, right? Or like what they're doing to have fun. Everyone was pinging each other on LinkedIn for work, but it's so bullshit and fake, that everyone's posting AI stuff or all the victories they have at work. I'm just posting like my memes and my content to make someone laugh. So I do a lot of LinkedIn. And then I have a fake Instagram account, but I only check store hours on. So I don't have I don't have either. But yeah, LinkedIn is like I'm making LinkedIn like my diary for people that wanted to magically connect with me and they never introduced themselves. Now they have to look at pictures of my dog. That's how I'm treating it.
I will link that in the show notes
Cool.
captions.
That's
I
funny.
find it interesting
Yeah.
with LinkedIn.
Yeah. 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 Cool.
Hank, I really hope we do this again someday because it
I'm
was
around.
extremely fun.
I think it would be funny to
Um,
do it again when we find somewhere to move and seeing what
absolutely.
happens. Because we don't have rental history. We're just trying it again.
So
So
please, then let's make it here on a record that
yeah.
you tell me next time after you settle down and tell me the story of of how did you manage to find the place.
Oh my God. Well, I can tell you it's hopefully easier here, but what city that will be or how they're going to accept me, I don't know. Let's do it. That'll be really fun. I love that idea.
You know my email
Yeah,
address,
there we go.
so let's do
Easy.
it like this.
Cool, dude.
Hank, talk to you next time. Thanks, man.
Thanks. See ya. Bye.
Bye.